Hey guys, tonight we will hear a dramatic story about what it was like to be a servant in an Edwardian household. You'll descend into a world of polished silver trays, silent staircases, and early morning fires that had to be lit before the masters awoke. But underneath all the quiet precision, a storm of unspoken rules, whispered alliances, and daily struggles raged behind the green baize door. You will never imagine that this terrible thing could happen. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes before the sun has even thought of rising. It's 4:30 in the morning, and the cold stone floor under your toes reminds you of where you are, not just in place, but in class, in history, in duty. You are Sarah Welling, a housemaid of 16 newly placed at Harrowick Hall, the estate of the Blackstone family. Your first week has passed in a haze of soap ash and hurried footsteps. You pull on your uniform, plain black crisp apron, stiff collar, and quietly lace your boots, each tug reminding you not to wake the others in the attic room you share with Polly, the scullery maid. She's still dreaming, curled beneath a thin wool blanket. You envy her a little, but you also know she'll soon be scrubbing grease and soot with red raw hands, so you let her sleep. Your task this morning is the drawing room fire. It's always the first job. The gentry expect warmth with their morning tea, never considering how the room got that way. You take the flannel bucket with yesterday's ashes and descend the servants' stairs. Every step creaks, but you've learned to step toward the edges where the wood is strongest. In the corridor below, the gas lamps sputter weakly against the dark. You pass Mary, the under-parlor maid, already setting out silverware for breakfast. She gives you a small nod, a silent greeting. You don't speak words, waste breath and time. That's the rhythm of the house. In the drawing room, your hands move with careful precision. Ash out first, a swift clean of the hearth. New coals stacked like a small pyramid, kindling, arranged with care. A lit taper, a slow inhale, and the fire begins to flicker to life. The warmth that will later make Lady Blackstone sigh in comfort comes from your fingers, raw and scraped from brick dust. You finish just as the hallway clock chimes 5. By 6 a.m., the house is humming. Mr. Peverly, the butler, begins his rounds, his footsteps firm, his posture always straight. His word is law below stairs, just as Lord Blackstone rules above. Mr. Peverly never yells. He doesn't need to. A look from him can make even cook pause her endless tirade about dripping and flour. You admire him from a distance. He walks like a man with secrets, every movement smooth, precise. And though his voice is always calm, you suspect he knows everything, who's been sneaking bread, who muttered under their breath, who didn't polish the brass knob to his standard. By mid-morning, the house begins to stir upstairs. A bell rings once from the second-floor corridor. It's the lady's maid summoning someone, probably Polly, poor thing. You hear Polly stumble down behind you moments later, apron askew, hair still pinned crookedly. Her eyes meet yours briefly, and you both understand another long day. In the kitchen, cook Mrs. Dallow rules her empire. She's wide of frame and sharp of tongue, but you learned quickly she's the heart of the house. Her roasts, her soups, her puddings, they hold everything together, even when tempers fray. Today, she's yelling at Thomas, the new footman, for letting the veal cool too long. His face goes red, but he says nothing. Don't just stand there, Sarah Cook barks at you. Take this tray up to the morning room. Her ladyship wants tea. You do as you're told. The silver tray is heavy with a china pot, 2 delicate cups and a plate of shortbread so crumbly it threatens to fall apart. You've practiced balancing it. One misstep and it's the end of your job. Or worse, the end of your reputation. The morning room smells of lavender polish and idle power. Lady Blackstone is seated near the window, her hair brushed to a soft sheen by her maid Evelyn. Her eyes glance over you, but do not see you. That's the rule. You're invisible, a shadow behind the comforts of her world. Leave it there, she murmurs. You place the tray down and back away without a word. You know better than to speak unless spoken to. Back downstairs, Polly tells you in a whisper that there's talk of a new valet arriving for Lord Blackstone. A military man, she says, eyes wide. Discharged from India. What's a soldier doing taking up livery? You shrug. The upper floors are a different planet. You only pass through like a ghost, and the less you know, the safer you are. That evening, after dinner service is cleared, you help Mary polish the banisters. It's silent work, rhythmic, almost soothing. Your arms ache, but the scent of beeswax and the shine left behind bring a strange satisfaction. Upstairs, laughter floats faintly down from the dining room. Lord Blackstone is entertaining guests again, probably Mr. Charles Fortescue, the family solicitor, and his thin, sharp-eyed wife. Mary whispers, "Do you think they'll stay the night? That'll mean extra fires. I hate cleaning their chamber pots. Hers smell like lavender and something worse." You giggle softly before covering your mouth. You're not supposed to laugh. Not too loudly, not too freely. It's unbecoming. By 10:00, you're finally back in the attic, toes cold again, fingers raw. Polly's already curled up, snoring softly, a curl of hair escaping her nightcap. You lie back and stare at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster. Your last thought before sleep claims you is simple, persistent. What will tomorrow ask of you? You're already on your feet before the cock crows. The frost hasn't melted on the inside of the attic window, and the ache in your legs from yesterday's stairs has barely faded. But there's no time to dwell. Servants don't get days off, not proper ones anyway. Down the corridor, Polly coughs herself awake. She's had that dry, chesty rattle for 2 weeks now, but she won't go to Mrs. Dallow about it. The last scullery maid, who got too weak to wash, was gone by supper. "Morning," she croaks. You nod, buttoning your black uniform dress. The hem is frayed, but you tuck the edges in and hope no one notices. In the back corridor, the smell of coal and rising dough greets you. Thomas, the young footman, is already hauling sacks into the scullery. He's tall and broad and always smudged with soot. But his blue eyes twinkle, and he sometimes leaves the last slice of pie on the kitchen table for you after supper. You suspect he was a farm boy before this, and a part of you envies the wide open air he once knew. Someone's in a rush, he teases as you pass, breath fogging in the cold. "I've got the upper hall carpets," you say, not slowing. Oof. Good luck with Lady Blackstone's little Pomeranian. That devil's got teeth. You roll your eyes. The dog, a yapping ball of white fluff named Primrose, has bitten 3 maids already. But her ladyship insists she roam freely while the rooms are turned over. You've learned to carry a scrap of sausage in your apron. Primrose is easily bribed. Upstairs, the hall is quiet but feels somehow heavier than usual. Evelyn, the lady's maid, passes you with a look you can't quite read. Her movements are clipped more brisk than usual. In the drawing room, you begin your morning cleaning. Dust off the lampshades, polish the brass frame of the fireplace, brush the ash flecks off the carpet. You're halfway through straightening the lace antimacassars when you hear raised voices from down the corridor. Unusual. Rare. Lord Blackstone doesn't often raise his voice, not even when he's displeased. His anger is the cold, quiet kind. But this is unmistakable. You freeze in place, one hand gripping the edge of the curtain. A door slams, then silence. You look toward the hallway, but no one is there. The upstairs seems to hold its breath. Later in the servants' hall, during the brief 10-minute break for tea, the whispers start. "He's fired the valet," Mary murmurs, dunking her biscuit into watery tea. Again, Polly says, eyes wide. "He only arrived last month," you add. Mary nods. "He found him reading one of her ladyship's letters. Said it was for security reasons. But..." She lowers her voice even further. "There's talk he suspected the man of spying or blackmail." Thomas, leaning in with his elbows on the table, smirks. Or maybe Lord Blackstone just doesn't like competition in the mirror. You try not to laugh, but your tea almost comes out your nose. The laughter fades quickly. You all know that people disappear from households like this all the time. One mistake, one insult, one misstep, and you're gone. No references, no pay, no second chance. In the afternoon, you're assigned to help prepare the East Wing bedrooms. The Blackstones are expecting guests for the weekend. You overhear Mrs. Dallow muttering under her breath something about Lord Blackstone's cousin, Colonel Everhart, returning from Africa. "That one's a snake in uniform," she grumbles to herself, always sniffing about like he owns the place. You haven't met Colonel Everhart, but the name makes Polly blanch when you ask. "He's not right," she whispers later. Walks into the kitchen uninvited. Watches too long. Once caught me kneeling to scrub the floor and just stood there. Didn't say a word. Just watched. You don't know what to say. But you know the look in Polly's eyes. It's the same one Mary had when she spoke of the last maid who went missing from Harrowick Hall. They said she'd returned to her family, but no one ever received a letter. The night before the guests arrive, you're tasked with polishing the library chandelier. You climb the ladder carefully, the tall ceiling spinning around you as you work crystal by crystal cloth in one hand, vinegar in the other. Below, Mr. Peverley enters with a quiet nod. "Carry on, Miss Welling," he says. His voice is soft, but carries the weight of a gavel. "Yes, sir." You wonder if he notices how your hands tremble, but he says nothing. Just stands at the base of the ladder until you finish. Afterward, as you climb down, he gently steadies the frame for you. That's as close to kindness as you've ever seen from him. And though he says nothing, something in the air between you shifts. "You take pride in your work," he says finally. "That's rare these days." You nod, not sure if you should thank him or just disappear. You choose the latter. That night you sit in the attic room with Polly, brushing her hair by candlelight. It's become a ritual, a comfort. The repetition of strokes, the silence, the simple companionship. "Do you ever think about leaving?" Polly asks softly. "All the time, you say. But where would we go?" You don't answer. Neither of you has a family to return to. And the world outside Harrowick Hall is just as cruel, only colder, more uncertain. Downstairs, the grandfather clock strikes 11. You blow out the candle, the room plunging into shadow. The servants' bells rest in silence for now, but tomorrow they will ring again. The east wing has awakened. It's not the usual rustle of skirts and clink of china that stirs the house, it's the scent. Something rich, foreign, perfumed with spices you can't name. It trails through the halls long before the guests step from their carriages. The air feels heavier when they arrive, as though their very presence thickens it. You watch from the landing above the main hall, just out of view. Lady Blackstone descends the grand staircase with arms outstretched, silk swishing behind her like water. At the foot of the stairs, Colonel Everhart removes his hat and bows. He's tall, sun-darkened, his uniform stiff and glinting with medals. But there's something in his smile that curls your spine. It's too slow, too rehearsed. Beside him is Miss Isabel Everhart, his daughter. Younger than Lady Blackstone, but not by much. Dressed in ivory lace with gloves so white they seem untouched by human hands. She doesn't smile, doesn't speak. Just looks up and around at the house like she's memorizing it. She'll be trouble, Mary mutters later, scrubbing a boot tray in the mudroom. That one walks like she owns the floorboards. Polly nods. Did you hear what she asked me? Wanted to know how often we changed the sheets in her room, and whether I was trained in hygiene. Trained, mind you, as if we're horses. You chuckle softly, but your fingers are raw from polishing the brass fittings in her chamber. You'd spent an hour scraping off what looked like old wax, only to be told it wasn't the right shine by Evelyn. The guests have settled in, and now the real work begins. Dinners are longer, breakfasts larger. Every meal requires 3 courses, sometimes 4. And that means more trays, more linens, more eyes watching your every move. During service, you assist Mary with clearing plates from the dining room. You move like a whisper, no clatter, no spills, no eye contact. But tonight, as you reach for the emptied pheasant dish, you feel it a gaze. You glance up for a moment too long. Colonel Everhart is staring at you. Not in surprise, not with kindness, just staring. You drop your eyes quickly, the tips of your ears going hot. Later back in the kitchen, Thomas is red-faced with frustration. He asked me if I knew how to handle a camel, he grumbles. A camel. Said it might be useful if I ever made something of myself. Then laughed. Mrs. Dallow waves a spoon in the air. That man's got a serpent's tongue. Don't rise to it, Thomas. He feeds on pride. That night, Mr. Peverley calls a meeting in the servants' hall. It's rare. His presence usually looms at a distance like the ticking of a clock you never quite see. Lord and Lady Blackstone will be hosting a garden soiree, he announces, hands folded behind his back. 3 nights from now, there will be dancing on the lawn and refreshments served until dusk. We are to prepare the grounds, assist the groundskeepers, and ensure no guest waits more than a minute. He pauses, scanning your faces. There will be no mistakes. The words land like weights on your shoulders. By dawn, you're hauling chairs down to the southern lawn. Your arms ache by the second trip, your boots already caked in mud from the dew-soaked grass. The head groundskeeper, Mr. Bellamy, assigns you and Polly to polish the brass lantern stands. They'll catch the light at sundown, he mutters, squinting at the horizon. Can't have them looking like they've been through a funeral. He's always smelled faintly of pipe tobacco and wet soil. A kind man, though sharp-eyed. He once helped you bandage a cut from a splintered bench without saying a word to Mrs. Dallow. As you polish, Polly whispers, I saw Miss Everhart talking to Lady Blackstone in the rose garden. She was crying. You look up. Crying, Polly nods, but not like she was upset. It was more quiet, like she didn't want to be heard. You file it away, just another strange thread in the tapestry of Harrowick Hall. The day before the soiree, you're called to clean the conservatory windows. You hate that room. Too much glass, too much sun. It bakes the plants inside like a hothouse, and by noon, it's hard to breathe. As you wipe the inside panes, the door opens behind you. You don't turn. You're not supposed to. But you hear the footsteps, slow, deliberate. They stop behind you. Then a voice deep, too close. Hard work, isn't it, Colonel Everhart? You nod, not trusting your voice. He steps closer. You can see his reflection in the glass, now tall, rigid, smiling slightly. Do you like it here, he asks. You swallow. I do what's required, sir. He chuckles, a safe answer. There's a pause, the kind that stretches until it snaps. Very well, he says finally. Carry on. The door closes behind him, and only then do you exhale. That night, Polly finds you in the attic room, kneeling by your trunk. Sarah, she says, your hands are shaking. You try to smile. Just tired. She kneels beside you, placing a small scrap of lace in your palm. From Miss Everhart's dressing table. She left it behind. I thought you might like something pretty. You stare at the lace. It smells faintly of jasmine. In that moment, you don't feel like a servant. You feel like someone who has a secret, like someone who is more than dust and soot. But you also know that secrets here are never safe for long. The day of the garden soiree arrives with clear skies and unbearable tension. From the moment the bells ring at dawn, the house becomes a hive of urgency. Mr. Peverly is everywhere, inspecting the placement of lanterns, adjusting silverware settings, reviewing the guest list with a frown as deep as the ocean. You barely have time to tie your apron before Cook is shoving a tray into your hands. Strawberry tarts for the East Wing, she snaps. And don't tilt it. If even one slips off the plate, I'll have your ears for dessert. You hurry past a whirlwind of activity. Mary is arranging cut glass pitchers in the drawing room. Thomas is dragging crates of champagne to the terrace. And Polly is on her knees, trimming the edges of the picnic rugs with sewing scissors, like the threads themselves might insult the guests. Outside, the lawn has been transformed. Rows of chairs face the grand fountain, which has been scrubbed to gleaming marble. Ivy trails the archways. Paper lanterns hang from strings stretched between trees, waiting to glow like stars when dusk falls. And at the center of it all, Lady Blackstone, dressed in a gown of soft green silk, her lips pursed in that tight smile she wears when everything must be perfect. Colonel Everhart stands by her side, speaking low, a glass of port in his hand. Miss Isabel Everhart hovers a few steps behind, unreadable, as always, her parasol resting on her shoulder like a weapon. You set the tray of tarts on the refreshment table and scurry back inside. You're needed to help Evelyn steam Miss Everhart's gloves. The guest room smells of powder and perfume, too sweet, too thick. Isabel sits before the mirror, her fingers resting on her lap. She'll be down shortly, Evelyn says curtly, handing you the crumpled gloves. You place them on the steamer and begin your work in silence. The gloves are made of silk so fine they catch on the ridges of your fingers. I don't see why we must pretend it's a celebration, Isabel says quietly. Her voice is light, like a string about to snap. Evelyn doesn't reply. Isabel turns to the mirror, watching you as if you were part of the furniture. My father insists on appearances, she continues. But sometimes a garden party is just a distraction from something rotting beneath the hedgerow. You dare not speak. You barely even breathe. She smiles then. But not at you, at something only she can see. When you return to the kitchen, the tension there has thickened. Thomas is pacing by the pantry, muttering to himself. What's wrong, you ask? He looks up. His jaw is tight. Mr. Peverly just told me I'll be assigned to wait near Colonel Everhart during the soiree. Personal service, he said. You frown. Why does that bother you? Thomas hesitates. Because last time I was near him, he asked where I kept my letters. My private letters. Your eyes widen. What? He nods. Said a young man like me must have admirers. Then smiled. That smile. You understand then. Not just discomfort, but danger. It's the same feeling you had in the conservatory. Outside, the party begins. Laughter and music drift through the open windows. The string quartet plays on the upper terrace, and the clink of crystal glasses echoes over the lawn. You're assigned to the East refreshment tent, replenishing drinks. It's busy work, filling, clearing, refilling. But it's safe. You're away from the guests, shielded by fabric and distance. Until Mr. Peverly appears beside you. Miss Welling, he says. Lady Blackstone would like a fresh decanter of elderflower cordial taken to the upper fountain. She requested you specifically. Your heart sinks. You know what this means. The upper fountain is where Colonel Everhart is standing now, glass in hand, talking with Lord Blackstone. You take the tray, your hands steady even as your stomach flips. As you approach, you hear their voices. Politics is theater, Colonel Everhart is saying. You know that better than most, cousin. The real power lies in knowing who watches from the wings. Lord Blackstone grunts in response. They notice you as you set the tray down. Ah, Everhart says, plucking a glass from the silver. Miss Welling, is it? You've done well. Thank you, sir, you reply, eyes on the ground. Tell me, he continues, circling you slightly. Have you worked here long? You hesitate. Nearly 2 months, sir. Do you enjoy it? I do what's asked. Lord Blackstone snorts. You'll get no poetry from the staff, Everhart. They're bred for silence. Sometimes silence is louder than words, Everhart murmurs. You feel his gaze burning into you, but you don't look up. Then suddenly, salvation. Thomas appears from the path tray in hand, expression unreadable. More champagne, sir, he offers. Everhart takes a glass, his attention shifting. Ah, the proud young footman. Tell me, Thomas, do you write many letters? Thomas's eyes flick toward you, then back to Everhart. Only to my mother, sir, he says coldly. Everhart's smile is slow. I hope she appreciates them. You and Thomas retreat quickly. Back behind the tent, out of sight, you both exhale. He's trying to unnerve us, Thomas says. Push us. He's doing more than that, you whisper. Back in the kitchen, as darkness falls and the lanterns outside begin to glow, the house thrums with an energy you can't name. It's not joy. It's not celebration. It's pressure. Like a storm waiting for permission to crack the sky. And somewhere upstairs, Miss Everhart's parasol rests forgotten on the stairwell table. The silk is torn. The morning after the soiree, the estate lies in a kind of stunned silence. The air smells of trampled grass and burnt candle wax. The lawn is littered with crushed petals, empty bottles, and ribbons, half unraveled from the trees. The guests are still asleep, but for the servants, the real work begins now. You are sweeping the gravel path near the east hedgerow, the bristles of your broom snagging on bits of lace and damp leaves when Polly comes running, well half running, half skipping over the pebbles. Her cheeks are flushed. You won't believe it. You blink. What? The parasol, she whispers. Miss Everhart's parasol. It's gone. You frown. I saw it last night, on the stairwell table. Polly nods furiously. So did I. But it's not there now. Evelyn says it's vanished. And you know what else? She was crying again. Miss Everhart. Saw her in the rose corridor this morning, face all blotchy. You glance toward the hall windows. Maybe it's nothing. Polly shrugs, but her expression says otherwise. Inside tension creeps back into the walls. Lady Blackstone snaps at Cook twice over the breakfast menus, once for too much rhubarb in the porridge, and once for not enough. Lord Blackstone doesn't come down until noon, and when he does, his face is drawn lips tight. The Colonel, as ever, is calm. You see him in the library later, fingers trailing over the spines of old books, as though hunting for something long forgotten. He sees you watching. He smiles. You leave the room quickly. Later that afternoon, Mr. Paverley calls you aside near the stairwell. Miss Welling, he says quietly, have you seen Miss Everhart's belongings disturbed? Anything unusual? You blink, no sir. But Polly mentioned the parasol was gone. He nods slightly. Yes, and a small cameo brooch as well. Her ladyship insists it's simply misplaced, but his eyes narrow. Colonel Everhart has requested that all servants' quarters be inspected. You freeze. Sir, it will be done discreetly, he says. But I'm telling you first. Prepare yourself. And he walks away. That night you sit in the attic with Polly, your knees drawn to your chest. They think we stole from them, Polly says softly. That's what this is. You don't answer. You just stare at the small scrap of lace still folded inside your apron pocket. The one from Miss Everhart's dressing table. The one Polly gave you days ago. Your stomach knots, Sarah Polly says after a long pause. What if they search your things? You look at her wide-eyed. I didn't take anything. It was a gift. I know, she whispers, but they won't believe that. You sit in silence for a long time. Below, the house sleeps, but not soundly. The next day, the inspections begin. It's subtle at first. You notice your trunk has been moved. Not much, just slightly out of alignment from the scuffed patch on the floor where it always sits. Your linens have been refolded, neater than you left them. Polly finds her prayer book missing from under her pillow. Thomas mutters that 2 letters he kept in a coat pocket were taken, then returned later without explanation. They're searching everything he says, grimly. They're not looking for the parasol. They're looking for weakness. At dinner service, the atmosphere at the long oak table is brittle. Lady Blackstone smiles too brightly. Colonel Everhart speaks too softly. Miss Everhart says nothing, pushing her potatoes around her plate like a child. You stand in the corner with the tray of wine decanters, trying to breathe without being noticed. until the moment Miss Everhart speaks. "I'd like to return to London," she says abruptly. All conversation halts. Lady Blackstone's spoon clinks against her plate. "Darling, that would be premature. You've only just arrived." "There's no reason to stay," Isabel says, not looking up. "Not anymore." Colonel Everhart's smile is tight. "We've discussed this." "No," she says louder now. "You spoke." "I listened." Lord Blackstone clears his throat. "Perhaps we might—" "I've had enough," Isabel says, pushing her plate away. "Of the gardens, of the facades, of the suffocating air in this place." She stands abruptly. No one moves. "I'll be in my room," she says, and walks out. You feel your breath return only when she's gone. Later, while clearing the hallway outside the dining room, you see Mr. Peverley and Lord Blackstone speaking in low tones. "A danger to himself, if nothing else," Lord Blackstone murmurs. "And I won't have scandal in this house." Peverley nods. "Should I speak to the authorities?" "No. Not yet. Let's keep this in the family. You back away before they notice you." Down in the scullery, Polly is scrubbing pots with a wild energy. "I don't like it," she says. She's scared. You can see it in her shoulders. You nod. She doesn't look at her father. Polly's voice drops. "I think he's done something. You don't want to believe it. But something is rotten at Harrowick Hall, and you're standing in the middle of it." The house is quieter now, but not in the usual peaceful way. It's the kind of quiet that follows an argument behind closed doors. Heavy, breathless. Everyone walks a little faster. Eyes darting not just to avoid mistakes, but to avoid each other. Even the bells ring less frequently. It's as though the Blackstones themselves are holding their breath. Your tasks for the morning are predictable linen collection stair dusting silver check. But today you're sent to refresh the drawing room's flower arrangements, something Evelyn usually handles. You suspect it's a distraction, a gentle redirection after what Mr. Peverley hinted about the search. As you gather roses from the garden, your fingers still damp with dew, you hear the crunch of boots on gravel. Colonel Everhart is walking alone, cane tapping lightly, eyes half closed as though savoring the scent of the roses. He pauses beside you. "Miss Welling," he says. You straighten, sir. I'm told you do fine work. Tireless, discreet. You say nothing. Praise from him feels like a trap. Loyalty, he continues, is the rarest commodity in any household. Wouldn't you agree? I wouldn't know, sir. He smiles faintly. But you do know. You've seen what happens when servants speak out of turn, when they forget their place. His gaze locks with yours for a heartbeat too long. Then he simply turns and strolls away. You return inside with the roses crushed slightly in your palm and a pulse in your throat you can't seem to calm. That afternoon, you're assigned to help Thomas polish the foyer banisters. You work in tandem, cloths in hand, shoulders bent, voices low. He cornered me near the stables yesterday, Thomas whispers, scrubbing with force. Asked if I kept secrets, said that silence is a kind of currency. You glance at him. What did you say? That I'm poor in every way, he mutters. But I keep my head down. You both pause at the same time, cloths still. The words hang between you. Something's going to happen, Thomas finally says. I can feel it. And it's not going to be good. Polly is the first to notice the letter. She finds it half-tucked under Miss Everhart's dressing table while helping Evelyn fold evening gowns. It's unsigned, sealed in dark blue wax. Later that night, she slips it into your hand beneath the kitchen table, her eyes wide. "I shouldn't have taken it," she whispers, "but something told me to." You don't open it immediately. You wait until the attic is silent and dark candle flickering low. Then with trembling fingers, you break the seal. The handwriting is small, elegant. Female. "If anything happens to me, tell the truth. There is danger in silence." The parasol was not lost. It was taken, and so was the brooch. "I never meant to stay this long. No signature, no date. But you know who wrote it." You fold the letter carefully and hide it beneath the loose board at the base of your bed. Polly stares at you in the dark. "What are we going to do?" "I don't know," you whisper. "But we need to be careful." The next day, Miss Everhart doesn't come down for breakfast. Lady Blackstone pretends nothing is unusual. She smiles through her tea, discusses flower orders with Evelyn, and reminds Mr. Peverly that the bishop is expected in 2 weeks' time. But everyone notices the empty seat. "She's unwell," Evelyn says later, too loudly, to no one in particular. The countryside doesn't suit her. You're sent to dust the upper corridors. As you pass Miss Everhart's room, the door creaks open an inch. Just enough. You shouldn't look, but you do. She's sitting by the window in a nightgown, her hair unbrushed, her hands limp in her lap. Her eyes meet yours. For a long second, neither of you move. Then she gestures, barely a flick of her fingers. A wave. Or a warning. You back away. Quickly. At dinner, Lord Blackstone is tense, his knife scraping his plate like he's carving the table itself. "The girl is fragile," he says. "She's not fit for society. She'll stay here until she's mended." Colonel Everhart nods slowly. "She's always had an overactive imagination. Best to keep her from the papers and the crowds." Lady Blackstone doesn't respond. She simply sips her wine. The next morning, the locks are changed. Thomas tells you in a rush he heard the sound of metal being replaced outside Isabel's room. "She's not allowed to leave," he says. "They've locked her in." You stare at him. "But that's wrong," he finishes. "Yes." Polly appears at your side, breathless. The letter's gone. Your blood turns cold. "What I checked this morning. The floorboard, someone's moved it. It's gone. Someone has searched your room. Someone knows you know." You spend the day walking like your shadow is being watched. In the laundry room, you overhear Evelyn arguing with Mrs. Dallow. "She's not well," Evelyn snaps. "And if you speak of it again, I'll report you for gossip." "I don't need to gossip," Mrs. Dallow replies quietly. "I have eyes. That girl is being kept like a prisoner. You slip away before they see you." That evening, Mr. Peverly intercepts you on your way to the kitchen. "Miss Welling," he says with a voice like iron softened by cloth, "if anyone asks you about Miss Everhart's health, she is resting. That's all." You nod, heart hammering. He leans closer. "Some truths are heavier than they look. Be sure you can carry one before you pick it up." And with that, he vanishes into the dark. In the attic, Polly curls up beside you in silence. Neither of you speaks, because neither of you knows who you can trust anymore. You don't sleep that night. You lie awake beneath your coarse blanket heart, ticking faster than the old grandfather clock downstairs, waiting for a creak on the stair, a flicker of lantern light under the door, a footstep that shouldn't be there. But no one comes. At dawn, Polly is still snoring softly beside you, her arm flung over the edge of the cot, like a child lost in dreams. You envy her. You wish you could unsee the look on Miss Everhart's face, that small, slow gesture from behind the window, the lock on her door, the missing letter. You dress in silence and head straight to the linen rooms. No assigned task, no bell, just instinct. You need something to do with your hands before your thoughts crawl too deep. When you enter the lower corridor, you find Mr. Peverly already there. Standing with his back to the door, hands folded neatly behind him, he looks less like a butler and more like a judge waiting to deliver a sentence. You freeze. "Miss Welling," he says without turning, "I trust you slept well." You lie. "Yes, sir." A pause. He glances at you. "Good. We all perform better with proper rest." There's something unreadable in his face. You wonder if he knows about the letter, about your floorboard. But his tone never shifts. His gaze never wavers. He nods and you're dismissed. You don't run, but your legs are weak as you leave. In the scullery, Polly is drying a stack of chipped teacups when you arrive. "They're watching everyone," she whispers. "Thomas said he was followed down the village lane by one of the groundsmen yesterday, just walking to post a letter." You glance at the open window where ivy creeps like silent fingers down the sill. They're making sure no word gets out. Polly nods. But that means they're afraid. It's true. Only cowards build walls that high. By midday, the house is humming again, but in a low, buzzing key. A funeral hum. Nothing joyful. The guests are gone now, and the Blackstones retreat into their routines. Lady Blackstone spends her mornings reading in the conservatory. Lord Blackstone has locked himself in the study for hours at a time. And Colonel Everhart, he lingers. He doesn't speak much, but he watches. Always watching. You're scrubbing the baseboards in the upstairs corridor when you hear it music. Soft, fragile. A piano faintly echoing from behind the closed door of Miss Everhart's room. You straighten slowly, brush still in hand. It's a lullaby. You recognize it somehow, something ancient, something woven with sadness. Notes that curl like smoke. And then the music stops, cut off mid-phrase. The silence that follows is deafening. Later that afternoon, Thomas finds you by the back staircase. "I'm going to get a letter out," he says in a whisper. You stare. To who? Doesn't matter. Someone who can ask questions. "Thomas, if they catch you." He shakes his head. "They won't. I'll sneak into the village at night. There's an old gate by the orchard. Almost no one uses it. You could be dismissed." He lowers his voice. "Sarah. That girl is a prisoner. She's terrified. And the colonel, he has something over her. I don't know what. But it's not right." You look at his face. His hands are shaking. He's afraid. But more than that, he's angry. You nod. "I'll distract Mr. Peverly," you say. "Just long enough." Thomas blinks. "You don't have to, I do. Because you know that if no one tries, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. The plan is simple. After supper, you'll take the long way down to the servants' hall, passing the library, where Mr. Peverly usually reviews the wine books. You'll ask him for inventory clarification. Keep him talking. Thomas will slip out the scullery door down the orchard path through the old gate. One letter. That's all it takes. It's a good plan. Until the bells ring. All of them. Every servant bell in the house chimes at once, a chorus of shrill, tinny notes that shake the walls. You've never heard that before. You rush to the main hall just as Mr. Peverly storms out of the library, eyes sharp. "What's happened?" he barks. Mary is standing by the drawing-room entrance, pale as flour. It's Miss Everhart. She's not in her room." The house freezes. A footman runs past, breathless. The window was forced open from the inside. Lord Blackstone storms down the stairs moments later, red-faced, followed by Evelyn clutching a shawl. "Search the grounds," Lord Blackstone bellows. "No one leaves until she is found. You and Polly are ordered to check the laundry rooms and garden sheds. You run, but you already know you won't find her there. You feel it in your bones. She's gone." Hours pass. The sun dies. Lanterns blaze across the estate. No one eats. No one speaks. By midnight, the search party returns. Empty-handed. "She left on foot," one of the groundsmen mutters. "No horse, no carriage." "She can't have gone far," someone else says. But you know that's not true. Some people are carried farther by fear than any train ever could. You return to the attic in silence. Polly is crying softly, curled into a ball. "She was going to run," she whispers. "She was planning it." That letter, it was her only warning. You climb into bed, heart hollow. You don't know where she is. You don't know what will happen now. But you do know this Harrowick Hall is no longer just a grand house. It is a cage. And you are still inside it. The morning after Miss Everhart's disappearance, the estate is cloaked in an unnatural calm, like the breath before a scream. The sun rises with reluctance, bathing Harrowick Hall in a grayish light that feels colder than any winter. Even the birds, usually raucous in the ivy-choked trees, seem to sense that something has shifted, that something is wrong. Polly doesn't speak during the first hour of chores. She carries the linen basket like it weighs 1,000 bricks and keeps her eyes low. You don't press her. You're too lost in your own thoughts. Each task feels heavier now, wiping down banisters, clearing breakfast trays, stoking fireplaces. You keep replaying the night in your mind, the window forced open, the ringing of the bells, the way Lord Blackstone roared like a cornered animal. Mr. Peverly has grown quieter, more focused. He doesn't bark. He doesn't glare. He listens. And that's what makes you nervous. At the morning meeting in the servants' hall, he addresses the group in a tone devoid of emotion. "Miss Everhart has taken leave under distressing circumstances," he announces. "The master and mistress are doing everything in their power to resolve the situation. In the meantime, we will maintain discipline, order, and discretion." He lets the last words settle like dust on the shoulders of every person in the room. You look at Thomas. He nods once, barely perceptible. He still has the letter he tried to post. He never made it to the gate. The bells changed everything. You were so close. That night, as you and Polly finish sweeping the scullery floor, Cook finally breaks the silence. "I was here before Lady Blackstone married into this house," she says suddenly, her voice low. "She used to laugh more, But when the colonel came back from India, things changed. You turned startled. The colonel cook nods, still sweeping. He wasn't always this polished. There were whispers even then, about what he did abroad, about why he was sent home. Polly leans in. What kind of whispers? Cook lowers her voice to a thread. That he was too fond of control. That he treated people, servants, natives, soldiers, like pawns. That he could smile while ruining a man's life, or worse. The room falls still. You swallow hard. Do you think he did something to her? Cook doesn't answer. Just resumes sweeping. The next few days blur together in a rhythm of tension and pretense. Lady Blackstone hosts a small luncheon with a visiting clergyman and pretends nothing is amiss. Her smile never touches her eyes. Lord Blackstone spends hours locked in his study. Once you hear him shout a loud, sharp bark of frustration, but when the door opens, he emerges composed. Colonel Everhart lingers near the windows. He watches the horizon, watches the tree line, watches you. You avoid him when you can, but that's harder than it sounds, especially when you're summoned. It happens on the third day. Mr. Peverly finds you in the lower corridor. Colonel Everhart has requested your presence, he says simply. Your mouth goes dry. Why he doesn't blink. You're to serve tea in the library, alone. You know better than to protest. You nod, turn, walk to the kitchen, and load the tray yourself. Fine china hot kettle, 2 shortbread biscuits. You steady your hands. You will not show fear. When you enter the library, he's waiting by the fireplace, one hand resting on the marble mantel. The room smells faintly of cigar smoke and old leather. Ah, he says smoothly. Miss Welling. You place the tray on the low table near the armchair and pour the tea as quietly as possible. He doesn't speak until you've straightened. She's gone, he says finally. You freeze. She always had a flair for drama, he continues. But this was a performance. And the audience, I fear, will misinterpret the ending. You don't respond. She left behind chaos, he murmurs. And chaos needs to be cleaned. Don't you agree? You grip your apron. I'm just here to serve tea, sir. He steps closer. Too close. You're cleverer than you look, Miss Welling, he says quietly. Which means you should understand the cost of disloyalty. You look up just once. His eyes are calm, cold, like water that's stopped moving. Then just as suddenly, he steps back and lifts his teacup. You may go, you nod. Turn and leave your legs barely carrying you down the hall. In the servants' corridor, you press your back against the wall and take your first real breath in minutes. He knows, or suspects, about the letter, about you. You have to do something. That night you meet Thomas behind the stable. The moon is high, shrouded by clouds. The air smells of wet hay and iron. I'm going tonight, he whispers. They've relaxed the watch. You blink. Are you sure? He nods. I'll take the orchard gate. I can be in the village by dawn. I'll find a constable, or a lawyer, or someone who knows what the colonel really is. You press the crumpled replacement letter into his hand. Your own version of Miss Everhart's note. You've copied what you could remember, added your own words, described the locks, the threats. If anything happens to you, you say they'll know I helped. Thomas smiles faintly. We'll be careful. You watch as he disappears into the trees. You wait. An hour passes. Then two. Then the bell rings. One single solitary chime. You race to the scullery where Polly waits, breathless. "Someone's been caught in the orchard," she whispers. "They're bringing them back." You feel your legs go cold. But when the figure is dragged in, flanked by two groundsmen, it isn't Thomas. It's someone else. A stranger. Caught trying to sneak through the hedgerow, one of the men says. Claims he's a journalist. Had a card for the London Gazette. Lord Blackstone steps forward, looks at the man, then simply says, "Burn the letter," and walks away. Your breath catches. Thomas is still out there. But someone else was watching too. The game has changed, and you're not the only one playing anymore. The next morning, rain slaps the windows like an accusation. The sky hangs low, a heavy gray sheet pressing down on the chimneys and slate roofs of Harrowick Hall. Water seeps into everything under doors, through boots, between bones. Polly and Mary speak in whispers, voices too soft even for the scullery walls to overhear. No one mentions the stranger from the night before. No one dares. But everyone moves slower. Everyone listens harder. You drift through your chores like a ghost, polishing the brass frames on Lady Blackstone's portrait, wiping the droplets from the panes in the grand hallway, scrubbing the soot from the parlor grate until your knuckles ache. Your thoughts are with Thomas. Has he reached the village? Did he slip through the orchard unnoticed after all? Or is he somewhere in the forest, hiding, watching, planning? You don't know, and the not knowing is the worst part. At midday, the drawing room bell rings. You answer it quickly, almost too quickly, and find Lady Blackstone seated in her armchair, dressed in pale gray silk and a shawl pinned loosely over her shoulders. The room smells of violet water and burning lavender oil. She looks at you for a long moment. Her hands tremble slightly as she reaches for her teacup. "You have sharp eyes," she says suddenly. You freeze mid-curtsy. "Yes, my lady." Eyes that notice things. A beat of silence. You reply carefully. "Only what's required, my lady." She nods. "Good girl." Another long silence. Then she gestures to the side table. "Fetch my embroidery from the bureau." You do, hands steady, heart racing. As you hand her the folded cloth and silk threads, she leans closer. Her voice is barely a whisper. "I don't trust him either." You look up. For the first time, you see something behind her eyes. Not coldness, not cruelty. Something like fear or guilt. Then she straightens her shoulders and begins threading her needle as though nothing happened. You back out of the room slowly, your skin tingling all the way down your spine. In the servants' hall, Mr. Peverly gathers you all for an announcement. Until further notice, he says with his hands behind his back, no one is to leave the estate without written permission. There will be no letters posted, no parcels accepted. Any suspicious behavior will be reported directly to the master. Murmurs ripple across the room. Cook folds her arms. Even for deliveries. "Yes," Peverly replies calmly. "Everything comes through me." He surveys the room with narrowed eyes. Then he adds, "And if anyone is found in contact with outsiders, journalists, former staff or otherwise, they will be dismissed. Immediately." You exchange glances with Polly. They're tightening the noose. That evening, the rain continues. A relentless drumming on the attic window keeps you and Polly from sleeping. she knows Polly says. Lady Blackstone. She knows what he did to Miss Everhart. You nod. She's afraid of him too. Polly turns toward you in the dark. Then why does she let it happen? You think of the shawl, the trembling fingers, the thousand silences stitched into every hallway. She's trapped, you whisper, like all of us. But she has more to lose. Polly doesn't reply. She doesn't need to. You both lie still, listening to the storm. The next morning, the estate is thick with mist. The gardens vanish into a pale blur. Sounds are muffled, distorted, like the house has sunk under a sea of fog. The bells ring once, twice, then stop. Everything feels delayed, muffled, dreamlike. You're sent to the third-floor corridor to clean the frames. It's a job you usually enjoy. Quiet, undisturbed. Just you and the smell of beeswax. But today, as you round the landing, you see something strange. Miss Everhart's door is ajar. You hesitate. No one ever leaves her door open. Not even Evelyn. You step forward slowly. Inside, the room is cold. The window is still open, a single pane swinging gently on its hinge. Rain has soaked the rug. The sheets are gone from the bed. The dresser stands empty. It's as though she was never here. Only a faint scent of her perfume remains, jasmine and something sharper. You back out of the room just as Evelyn rounds the corner. "What are you doing here?" she demands. I was sent to clean the upper frames." She stares at you a moment too long. Then oddly, her voice softens. "Don't linger here again." You nod. "Yes, miss. But you know something's changed. They're erasing her." Downstairs, Cook pulls you aside behind the pantry door. "Have you seen this?" she whispers, holding out a scrap of paper. It's a torn envelope. Damp stained. Stamped with the mark of the London Gazette. Your heart stutters. "Where did you get that?" "One of the stable boys found it half buried in the mud near the orchard. Looks like it was dropped. Never posted. The name on the front is faint but visible. Miss Isabel Everhart." Polly appears beside you, breath catching in her throat. "They intercepted her letter," she whispers. Cook tucks the paper into her apron. "Careful who you trust," she murmurs. "This house eats secrets like stew." You nod slowly. You feel it now, tangible, pressing, unavoidable. Someone here wants the truth buried, and someone else is trying to dig it up. That night you wait by the attic window. If Thomas made it out, he would have reached the village. Maybe further. Maybe London. You pray that he did. But as the clouds part and moonlight spills across the orchard, you see it. A flicker of light in the woods beyond the estate wall. Then another. 2 pulses. Then gone. Polly sees it too. She grips your hand. Was that I don't know. But you feel it deep in your chest. A signal. A warning. Or maybe a promise. That someone somewhere is still fighting. And maybe, just maybe, you're not as alone as you think. The next morning, the estate feels different. Not louder. Not busier. Just tense. Like the walls are listening. Mr. Peverly moves through the halls with even more precision than usual, his footsteps clipped and calculated, his ledger tucked under his arm like a weapon. You see him stop to speak with Evelyn, and their eyes flick towards you as you pass. Not long, just enough. Enough to know they're watching. Polly stays close to you through breakfast service. She barely touches her tea. They know something's wrong, she mutters as you both polish the silver salt cellars. But I don't think they know what yet. Let's keep it that way. The rest of the morning blurs into menial tasks, repairing a torn hem on a hallway curtain, mending a tablecloth, folding starch-stiff pillowcases in the laundry room until your knuckles are raw. But your thoughts never leave the orchard. Those two pulses of light still flicker in your mind. Had Thomas made it? Was he signaling, or was someone else sending you a message? By midday, the rain clears. The grounds dry slowly under a hesitant sun, and Lady Blackstone announces she will be taking tea in the garden. The staff mobilizes at once, blankets, laid trays, polished parasol brought down from the linen closet. You are assigned to serve. It's only her and the Colonel. You watch from a few feet away as they sit in silence, the air heavy with unsaid things. Colonel Everhart stirs his tea with the tip of his spoon, not looking at her. She, for her part, keeps her gaze on the roses. Finally, she speaks. "You're enjoying your stay, I assume." "Immensely," he replies. "Though your weather could do with more discipline." She lets the jab pass. And Isabel. There's a beat of silence. He answers without blinking. "Is safe." Lady Blackstone doesn't flinch, but her fingers tighten ever so slightly on her teacup handle. You pretend not to notice, but later, as you collect the tray, she holds your gaze for half a second longer than necessary. And just before she turns away, she says softly, "Careful. There are cracks in the foundation." It's a strange thing to say, but you understand it. Harrowick Hall is breaking, and the cracks are starting to show. That night, Polly wakes you with a whisper. "Come. Quick." You follow her barefoot down the attic stairs, careful not to make a sound. She leads you through the servants' corridor, past the pantry, past the storerooms, until you stop at the old butler's wine cellar. She lifts the latch. You hesitate. "We're not allowed down here." "I know," she says. "That's why it's safe." Inside, the air is damp and chilled. The stone walls are lined with dusty racks. But in the far corner behind a stack of unused bottles, Polly shows you what she found. A loose panel. Behind it, a passage. Narrow, dark, cobwebbed. She lights a match. Look. It's a service tunnel, an old one, likely forgotten. Part of the original structure from before the renovations, decades ago. "Where does it lead you?" whisper. "I followed it a little earlier," she says. "It runs beneath the east wing. Then it forks." You stare at her. "You went in alone." She shrugs. "Didn't get far." "I was too scared. But this could be how she left." You both kneel, peering into the narrow dark. "Or where she was taken," you murmur. You decide to follow it. Together. But not tonight. Not yet. You need more light. And more courage. The next day, Mr. Peverly calls you into the front parlor. Alone. The room is warm. Too warm. A fire blazes even though the air outside is mild. The curtains are drawn. The shadows move strangely. He gestures to a chair. You sit. You've been here 2 months now, he says. Yes, sir. You've learned the rhythms of this house. Yes, sir. And you understand what happens when those rhythms are disturbed. You pause. I believe so, sir. He folds his hands. The colonel is a man of stature, a man with connections. You nod. He has taken a liking to you. Your stomach flips. I didn't notice. That's why he likes you. You stay quiet. Peverly leans forward, his voice soft now. I was once like you. Thought I could change things by holding secrets. Thought silence was strength. He looks at the fire. But silence is only useful if you're the one in control of it. You don't know what to say, so you say nothing. He lets out a long breath. Be careful, Miss Welling. Not everyone in this house is what they seem. That night, you return to the tunnel. Polly waits by the entrance, 2 candles in hand. You've both soaked rags in lamp oil and wrapped them around broken bits of broom handle. You go first. The tunnel is narrow, barely enough for your shoulders. The air is damp and smells of earth and mildew. Every step echoes. The floor is uneven stone and cobwebs brush your cheeks like whispers. You reach the fork. One passage slopes downward. The other curves toward the east wing. You take the curve. 10 steps in, you find a door. Wooden, warped, barely hanging on its hinges. You push it. It creaks open into darkness. Inside is a small room. No windows, no light. Just a mattress on the floor and a single shoe. Small. Polly lets out a strangled gasp. You kneel and pick up the shoe. Inside it, stuffed into the toe, is a folded scrap of paper. You open it with trembling hands. He said no one would believe me. He said silence is safety. But silence is worse. Silence is a prison. You look at Polly. Her face is pale, her eyes wide. She was down here, she whispers. He kept her here. You nod slowly. But something else gnaws at your thoughts. She left. Which means at some point someone let her go and you intend to find out who. You don't sleep after what you found in the tunnel. You sit on the edge of your cot in the attic, the shoe still wrapped in your apron. The paper inside it is hidden under your mattress, folded so many times it feels like a pebble pressing into your spine. Polly watches you from her bed, silent, shivering beneath her blanket. She was there, she whispers, like repeating. It might make it real. In that room alone. You nod, and someone helped her escape. Maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe she escaped herself. Maybe she fled barefoot through the tunnel and ran into the woods without a plan. But something about that room didn't feel desperate. It felt prepared. You rise before dawn and carry on with your duties, dusting the morning room, airing the guest linens, wiping the brass drawer pulls in the music parlor. But your mind won't stop turning. Who knew about that passage? It had to be someone who knew the house before you, before even Polly. Someone who had watched and waited, and who had a key. That afternoon, as you descend the rear stairs, you spot Evelyn near the east corridor. She's holding a small brown parcel wrapped in twine. Her eyes dart left, then right. She slips it into the inside of her apron and vanishes behind the servants' stairwell. Later in the laundry room, you mention it casually. Polly goes pale. That's not the first time. What I've seen her do it before. Once by the garden shed. Once near the gatehouse. You stare at the pile of wet linens in your hands. Evelyn. She'd always been cold, calculating, but never disloyal. Not openly. She might have helped her, you whisper. Or she might have helped him, Polly counters. The thought chills you. Because Evelyn has access to every room in the house. Every drawer. Every locked cabinet. She's the shadow that moves silently from hall to hall. And you've been ignoring her. That evening during supper prep, you find yourself alone in the upstairs corridor. You shouldn't be there. You should be in the scullery peeling carrots. But something pulls you upward. Evelyn's room is tucked just behind the linen press, a space barely larger than a closet. You pause at her door. Listen. Silence. You push the door gently. It creaks. Inside her room is immaculate. Not a wrinkle in the bedspread. Not a speck of dust on the shelf. A single hairbrush rests on a doily bristles facing outward. A mirror stands in the corner, polished to a sheen. But in the far left corner beneath the bed, something glints. You kneel, pull it out. It's a tin box. Inside folded letters. Dozens of them. All addressed in the same fine handwriting. Isabel's handwriting. You flip one open. You said he would leave. You said you'd handle it. But he stays. And now I don't sleep. Another, the room smells of damp stone. I dream of drowning. Another still, you promised Evelyn. You hear footsteps, fast. You snap the box shut and slide it back. Then Evelyn's voice, looking for something. You jump. She stands in the doorway, arms folded, expression unreadable. Sorry, I was just what I was delivering fresh linens. I thought this was the guest room. She doesn't blink. Her eyes hold yours like pincers. Then without a word, she steps aside and lets you pass. You walk steady, but your pulse is thundering in your ears. That night, Polly wraps her blanket around her shoulders like armor. She was helping her, she says. But why hide the letters? Why keep them? You shake your head. Because she never intended to send them. She was collecting evidence. Maybe protection, or maybe guilt. Guilt. You look toward the attic door. If she knew what the Colonel was doing and said nothing, if she promised Isabel help but failed, maybe she couldn't bring herself to destroy the proof. Polly sits in silence for a long while. Then we need to talk to her. You blink, Evelyn. She nods. Tonight. Alone. Somewhere private. You hesitate. But you know Polly is right. It's time. You wait until the house quiets, until the bells stop ringing and the floors stop groaning. Then you and Polly slip through the hall past the pantry to the rear laundry chamber. It's where Evelyn often irons late into the night. Sure enough, she's there, standing by the flickering oil lamp, pressing a lace collar beneath a heavy flat iron. She doesn't look up, but she speaks. I wondered when you'd come. You stop. Polly clutches your arm. We found the letters, you say softly. She lifts the iron, sets it aside, still not looking at you. I never meant to keep them from her, she says. At first, I just didn't know what to do, and by the time I did, it was too late. You take a step closer. What happened to her? She was going to be married, Evelyn says flatly. Not to him, to someone in London. A man with a good family and a kind heart. She was in love, Polly whispers. She was free, Evelyn corrects. Or she thought she was. Until the Colonel returned. You glance at Polly, then back at Evelyn. He stopped the marriage, Evelyn nods. Said she would marry who he chose. That she was his property, like the land or the staff. She refused. She tried. Evelyn's voice breaks then. She screamed, fought, cried. But he had power. Friends in Parliament. The church. Her father. Said nothing. You feel your chest tighten. And the room you ask. The tunnel was my idea, she says. I gave her the key, stocked it with food. I thought she could hide until I could get help. But she left, Polly says. She ran. Evelyn nods. I left the window unlatched. I watched her go. You exhale slowly. She's alive then. I hope so. Silence settles over the room. Then Evelyn turns to face you, eyes red. I've made mistakes, but if you want to help her, I'll show you something. You glance at Polly, then nod. Evelyn lifts the lid of the ironing cabinet, and beneath a pile of scorched collars, a ledger, thick, bound in leather, stamped with the seal of the Blackstone estate. She opens it to the marked page. There's a list, she says, of names, transfers, payments, arrangements. For what? For bribes, she whispers. To keep Isabel's silence. To cover her illness. To erase her. Polly gasps. You stare at the page. You understand now. This isn't just a scandal. It's a machine. And it's still running. You stare at the ledger, barely breathing. The entries are handwritten, dated in steady ink, February 7th. £100 wired to DR. Matter concluded. March 3rd. Carriage arranged to local sanatorium, false entry. March 9th. Servant reassigned without reference. March 16th. Evelyn warned. Each line is another step in the process. Not an accident. Not a moment of weakness. A system. Polly stands beside you, clutching the ironing table for balance. Her face is white. They've been covering this for months, she says. Maybe longer. Evelyn doesn't meet your eyes. I didn't know how far it had gone, she says. Not until it was too late. You close the ledger gently and hand it back. Where did she go? Evelyn's voice is low. I don't know. I helped her get as far as the crossroads near Fern Hollow. From there, she vanished. You take a deep breath. We need to get this to someone. The authorities. The papers. Evelyn looks up. Do you think they'll believe you? You pause. She's not wrong. You're just servants. Invisible. Replaceable. Voices that don't carry beyond the garden walls. But still, the truth is the truth, and you can't carry it alone anymore. That night, you and Polly huddle in the attic room beneath the flickering stub of a candle, whispering over a scrap of paper. We need to get this ledger out, Polly says. But if Peverly sees us, he won't. You interrupt. We won't go through the front. You tap the corner of the page. The tunnel. Polly's eyes widen. Back to the chamber, no. Through it. You've been thinking about it ever since you first stepped foot in that passage. It forked, remember, one path led to the chamber. The other, you never followed. What if it doesn't lead out, she asks. Then we try something else. But your voice doesn't waver. Because in your gut, you know it does lead somewhere. You just have to find out where. The next afternoon, Lady Blackstone calls you to her dressing room. It's a pale pink chamber filled with glass perfume bottles and ivory hairbrushes. But she sits near the window without her usual affectation, her face softer than you've ever seen it. She doesn't ask you to fetch anything. She doesn't even move. She just says, "Do you know what I regret?" You hesitate. "No, my lady." "Marriage," she says plainly. You glance toward the door. "I was young," she continues, "and foolish. I believed wealth was protection, that this house would be a kingdom, that I'd be queen." You don't know what to say. She looks at you. There's a woman in every girl, and sometimes the girl has to vanish to survive the woman. You nod slowly, and then softly she adds, "Be careful what you become, Miss Welling." Then she turns back to the window, and the conversation is over. After nightfall, you and Polly slip down to the wine cellar carrying 2 candles and the ledger wrapped in muslin. The tunnel is cold and still. The walls breathe with old air. You pass the fork without hesitation this time, turning right instead of left. The second passage slopes downward, then curves, and finally rises. At the end, a rusted iron grate blocks the exit, but it's loose. You and Polly pry at it together. The hinges groan but give. Beyond is a tool shed, long abandoned, ivy covered. The roof sags. Mice scatter when you enter, but the door is unlocked. Outside, the night is moonless. A thin trail winds through the hedgerow, leading away from Harrowick Hall. You smell pine and wood smoke. You feel air, real air, fresh and cold and unfiltered by chimney soot. Polly clutches your arm. "This is it." You nod. "You'll go," you tell her. Her eyes widen. "Me, I'm watched," you say. And Evelyn says you're still invisible to them. She hesitates, but only for a moment. "I'll take the ledger to the vicar's house in Fern Hollow," she says. "He's the only one who ever helped my sister. He'll know what to do." You press the muslin-wrapped ledger into her arms. "You're sure?" she nods. And then just before she slips into the night, she whispers, "Don't let them take this place back." And then she's gone, swallowed by mist and moonlight. You return through the tunnel alone, but the moment you re-enter the cellar, you feel it. You're not alone. You turn. Mr. Peverly stands by the stairwell. In his hand, a lantern. He doesn't look surprised, only tired. "I thought you might try the passage," he says quietly. You say nothing. "I followed you," he adds, "but I didn't stop her." You blink. "I didn't stop her because I'm tired of pretending, Miss Welling. This house has poisoned us all." He sets the lantern down and turns to leave. "Tell them what you must," he says, "but be careful." And then, almost as an afterthought, "I once believed in this place, in its order, its beauty. But I see now It was always just rot under polish. You watch him vanish into the corridor, and you realize something. He's not your enemy. Not anymore. Back in the attic, you wait. You sit by the window watching the orchard, waiting for a sign, a light, a voice, anything. But the night remains quiet. The storm hasn't come. Not yet. But you know it's building, and this time it's not coming for you. It's coming for them. The morning sun returns with strange brilliance. The fog has lifted. The air is crisp and sharp, as if something buried beneath the estate has been exhaled into the sky. You awaken to the scent of fresh bread and chimney smoke. Normal on the surface, but something in your bones tells you this is not an ordinary day. Polly is gone. The cot beside you is neatly folded. Her apron is draped over the railing. She took nothing that might raise suspicion, but the absence of her humming her awkward off-key songs while she dressed leaves a strange silence in the attic. You wash your face in the basin and dress slowly, listening for raised voices. Alarms, accusations, none come. Downstairs, the routine continues. Lady Blackstone takes her tea in the garden. Mr. Peverly recites the breakfast orders. Thomas clears the fireplace grates. Evelyn sharpens the pleats of Lady Blackstone's gowns with terrifying precision. But beneath every glance you sense it. Something is about to break. You scrub the second-floor banister with waxy cloth and elbow grease heart, ticking steadily. When you hear it, a carriage bell. You step to the window. A modest black carriage has arrived at the main entrance. Not grand like the Blackstones' usual visitors, but official. And standing beside it, dressed in brown wool and carrying a leather satchel, the vicar from Fern Hollow. Your heart nearly stops. You race down the stairs to the scullery under the pretense of fetching clean linens, but your path is blocked by Mr. Peverly. He speaks without turning. Go slowly today, Miss Welling. The master is in a volatile mood. You nod. Yes, sir. But inside, everything is speeding up. You find Thomas outside the stables checking the hoof of one of the mares. He's alive. Mud-streaked, worn, but breathing. He glances up. His expression shifts the moment he sees your face. She made it, he asks, voice low. You nod. The vicar's here. He doesn't smile, not exactly, but the tension in his shoulders eases for the first time in days. I passed through the south trail, he says. Found a place to lie low after I left the orchard. Figured I'd wait for a sign. This is it, you say. He stands wiping his hands. Then we stay quiet. Watch what happens next. You slip into the hallway near the drawing room. The vicar stands with Lord and Lady Blackstone, his hat in hand. His voice is calm but insistent. I'm afraid I must inquire directly, he says. A young woman arrived at my home late last night. She was barefoot, exhausted, and carrying evidence of sustained psychological harm. Lady Blackstone is pale. Lord Blackstone is not. He is red. You dare accuse this house of cruelty, he spits. I accuse no one, the vicar says. I only report what I've seen, and I ask for a conversation in good faith. The colonel enters then, too quickly. His eyes settle on the vicar like a hawk eyeing a wounded bird. You're mistaken, he says smoothly. My daughter has always had a flair for theatricality. She fled a stable courtship to chase scandal, She'll say anything to ruin her family's name. She gave me names, the vicar says. She described a tunnel, a chamber. He pulls the muslin-wrapped ledger from his satchel. And this. Lady Blackstone doesn't look at it. But you see her flinch. Lord Blackstone steps forward. You have no right. I do, the vicar interrupts. And now that I've submitted it to the constabulary, so do they. Silence. Colonel Everhart's jaw tightens. You'll regret this, he murmurs. But the vicar does not retreat. He bows. Perhaps. But she won't. By afternoon, word spreads quietly like wind in tall grass. Servants stop speaking when you enter the rooms. Evelyn avoids your eyes, but Cook pulls you aside. They're cornered, she whispers. They won't lash out. Not yet, not openly. You nod, but you know something still isn't right. Because the colonel hasn't disappeared. He hasn't packed his trunks. He hasn't even raised his voice. Instead, he dines at the same table that night, polishing off roast duck with slow, deliberate bites, as if nothing has changed, as if he still controls everything. Later that evening, Mr. Peverly finds you. His expression is unreadable. There's going to be a fire, he says softly. You blink what in the tunnel? They'll say it was spontaneous, caused by mold and damp timber. But it won't be. It will be cleansing. You stare at him. Isabel's room, you whisper. They're going to burn the chamber. He nods. You can't stop them, I've tried, he says. I've slowed them, but it's happening tonight. You grab his sleeve. Then we get everything out. He shakes his head. The ledgers are gone, you did that. But there's more, and it's buried. You hesitate. Then let them burn it. Mr. Peverly's face shifts, surprise, then approval. There are some truths, he says, that must be witnessed only once, and then allowed to go. You nod. You understand. This isn't about keeping the chamber. It's about letting her leave it behind. That night you stand in the east garden with Polly Thomas and Cook. From the far hedgerow you can see smoke curling from the grate near the old shed. The flames are slow at first, then brighter. But no bells ring, no alarms, because this fire is sanctioned, measured, contained. You watch the smoke rise into the sky, black and thick, carrying with it the dust of lies and secrets. Polly takes your hand. It's over, she says. But you shake your head. It's just beginning. And together you watch Harrowick Hall smolder from the inside. For the first time you see it clearly. Not a grand estate. Not a kingdom. Just a house. And houses can fall. By morning the fire has burned itself out. No alarms were raised and no officials were summoned. Just a faint haze lingering over the orchard and the sour stench of scorched mildew in the air. The tunnel has collapsed inward. Bricks' cracked beams sagged. The hidden room, the bed, the shoe, it's all ash now. You walk past the cellar door on your way to fetch linens and feel the heat still clinging to the stones. Polly finds you on the stairs. Her eyes are bloodshot, her fingers ink-stained. I've written everything down, she whispers. Every name, every threat, every letter we saw. I don't care if no one believes me, someone will listen. They have to. You nod. You believe her. You need to believe her. But you also know the Blackstones won't fall easily. Men like Colonel Everhart don't vanish when exposed, they adapt. You saw it in his eyes at breakfast. He was already planning his next move. Lady Blackstone doesn't come down that morning. Not for tea. Not for letters. Not even for Mass. Evelyn brings her a tray, but returns with it untouched. She hasn't spoken since the fire, she murmurs. She just stares out the window. You think of her sitting by the garden in her green silk dress, warning you in riddles, hiding fear behind ritual. Maybe the fire took more than stone and soot. Maybe it took the last piece of her illusion. Thomas works quietly, helping the stable boys pack crates into the back of a rented cart. He says little. He looks like a man halfway between freedom and punishment, never sure if he'll be rewarded or arrested. Isabel's safe, he says as he tightens the ropes. That's what matters. Did you see her, you ask? He nods. She's not the same, but she's strong. She asked me not to return. Will you listen? He thinks for a moment. I don't know. Then he lifts the last crate into the cart and walks away from it all. Inside the manor, Mr. Peverly calls a final meeting in the servants' hall. Everyone assembles, Cook, Evelyn, Mary, the scullery boy, even the gardener. You all stand in a crooked semicircle as if awaiting judgment. Mr. Peverly stands tall, but his voice is gentler than you've ever heard it. The hall will be undergoing administrative changes, he begins. You glance at Polly. Everyone knows what that means. The colonel is leaving, or being removed. There will be inquiries, investigations, not public, of course. He looks at each of you, but real. Things will not continue as they have. No one speaks. He continues. If any of you wish to seek employment elsewhere, I will provide written references, generous ones, and I will not ask questions. Then he looks at you. For those who stay, know that silence is no longer the law. You inhale slowly. A weight lifts from your chest you didn't know you were still carrying. In the following days, the rhythm of Harrowick Hall begins to change. The bells ring less often. Some are removed entirely. Lady Blackstone no longer hosts luncheons. Her dressing room is quiet. Her gowns remain untouched. Evelyn takes long walks in the garden alone. Cook begins baking bread just because she likes the smell. Mary laughs aloud in the kitchen, something she hasn't done in weeks. And Polly writes, every evening, letters, diary entries, pages she never sends. She says it helps her keep the memories real, sharp, like thorns. You return to your duties, but the weight of them has shifted. No longer chains, just movements, routines. The world feels possible again. But still, you watch, you listen, you keep your guard up. Because one morning, Colonel Everhart vanishes. No carriage, no announcement. Just gone. Mr. Peverly finds his room empty, his trunk half-packed, his wardrobe raided. A single cufflink remains on the dresser, gleaming in the morning light. Nothing else. Will they find him? Polly asks that night, staring at the ceiling. I hope not, you whisper. Because men like that are most dangerous when cornered. Days stretch into weeks. The halls are quieter, the shadows shorter. And then one afternoon, a letter arrives, addressed to Miss Sarah Welling, written in elegant cursive. You open it alone in the attic. Inside, a short message. I remember everything. Thank you for keeping me human. I won't forget you. No return address, no location. But it's enough. You clutch the paper to your chest and close your eyes. She's alive, and she remembers. And somehow, in a world built to erase girls like her, that is the victory. You and Polly walk the orchard path the next morning, the sun warm on your backs. The leaves are beginning to turn gold. The tunnel is buried, the walls sealed, but you feel it under your feet still. Not like a grave, like a scar. And scars you've learned mean healing has begun. You think things will stay quiet, Polly asks, her boots crunching over dry leaves. For a while, you say. Long enough. Long enough for what? You smile. For us to decide who we want to be next. Polly links her arm with yours. You walk on, back to the hall. Back to a house no longer asleep. A house no longer pretending. A house that has finally, after so many years, begun to listen. The days grow shorter. Summer fades into a cooler, more honest autumn, the kind that strips the trees bare and lays truth across the land like frost. Harrowick Hall changes with the season, not in decoration or ritual, but in feeling, in breath. The silence is still there, but it's no longer the kind that smothers. It settles gently now between the walls and under the stairwells like a sigh of relief. You rise at dawn as you always have, but the weight on your chest is lighter. The routine is still strict, bed-making fires, polishing, bell answering, but there is a softness underneath it now, a recognition, a sense that someone is finally watching the watchers. There is no replacement for Colonel Everhart, no announcement of his departure, no mention of him at all. He has been unmade by absence, and yet the memory of what he left behind continues to live in the corners of the house, the scorched cellar stone, the bruised look in Evelyn's eyes, the way Lady Blackstone now drapes dark shawls even on sunny days. Truth leaves fingerprints even when it's not spoken aloud. Evelyn has changed too. She no longer pins her hair in tight knots or keeps her lips pressed into a permanent line. She wears softer fabrics, speaks more quietly, and no longer walks with the rigidity of someone trying to disappear into duty. One morning she brings you a package, wrapped in brown paper and tied with a string. Inside, a copy of the London Gazette. The headline reads, "Missing Heiress Testifies in Private Allegations Against Decorated Officer Mount." You scan the article. Most names are omitted, but the details, they're true. She did it, you whisper. Evelyn nods. And they printed it. It's not a trial, not yet. But it's a beginning. You read the closing line twice, Miss E. Age 20 is now residing in an undisclosed location with family support. She requests privacy and healing. Polly hugs you that night without saying anything at all. The staff begins to shift. Mary receives an offer to join a smaller estate in Kent and accepts it with nervous excitement. Cook, despite grumbling about fresh starts at her age, begins planning to open a modest bakehouse in the village. Even Mr. Peverly is seen speaking with an estate agent about retirement options. The machine is breaking apart, and no one is trying to stop it. Except you. You stay, and so does Polly. You've seen too much to walk away now. You're not just a servant anymore. You're a witness. In late October, Lady Blackstone invites the village children for a harvest gathering, something Harrowick Hall hasn't done in nearly a decade. You help string garlands over the orchard gates. Polly bakes apple tarts beside Cook. Evelyn donates bolts of old velvet for costume making. For a brief moment, the estate breathes again. Not with grandeur or pride, but with something simpler. Something like forgiveness. You see Lady Blackstone smile at the children, really smile, not the distant curl of aristocratic detachment. A young girl runs up and throws her arms around her skirt, and the lady freezes for just a second, then gently pats the girl's head. Even ghosts can learn kindness, you think. Even queens can choose gentleness. That evening, you sit on the attic steps, a mug of tea warming your palms. The orchard is silent now. The banners have been taken down. The laughter has drifted away with the wind. Polly sits beside you, sketching the outline of the manor on the edge of a torn ledger page. You ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't found that tunnel, she asks softly. You nod. All the time. You think they would have buried her story, maybe you say. But stories have roots. They always come back. She sets the sketch aside. You ever going to leave this place someday? But not yet. You look out at the hall, the lights glowing through the ivy-wrapped windows, the garden lamps swaying gently in the wind. No, you say. Not yet. Because the story isn't finished. Not until every door has been opened. Not until every voice has been heard. Not until every girl who was told to be silent learns that she never had to be. And so you rise again the next morning. You pull on your apron. You lace your boots. You light the fires and answer the bells. But now you carry something they can't take from you, not title, not status, not even name. You carry truth, and truth is heavier than silver, but it shines brighter than any chandelier in the hall. You are Sarah Welling, servant, witness, protector of stories, and for the first time in your life, you are not afraid. Now just take a moment. Let your breath soften as if you too were walking the empty corridors of Harrowick Hall at dusk. Let the echoes fade. Let the lanterns dim. Picture the house in your mind, now still grand, still vast, but no longer a place of whispers and fear. See the curtains flutter softly in the breeze. See the firelight glow from within. Listen for the silence, but not the kind that smothers. This is the gentle hush of peace, of healing. The sound of a story that has finally been told. Let your body relax one part at a time. Your jaw, your shoulders, your arms. You've walked through so many rooms tonight. Watched secrets rise like smoke and fall like dust. You've seen what it's like to be small in a world built to keep you that way, and what it means to push back anyway. And now, it's time to rest. Let go of the story. Let go of the noise. Drift down now like a leaf falling from a high branch, slow and quiet. Back to your bed. Back to the warmth of the covers. Back to the rhythm of your own breath. The house is quiet now. The night is still. And you are safe.